Hey everyone, let's move through a strength-based practice in planks and side planks today. So if you have any wrist sensitivities, have your wedge or your plank handles handy. Do another short video or do a warm up and get your spine moving beforehand, and then I will meet you in tabletop pose. In your tabletop, checking in with how you're feeling and what's going on with your alignment. So trying to bring the knees pretty much right under the hips with the feet directly behind the knees. We have our hands plugged in right under our shoulders, fingertips are nice and wide, with the middle finger pointing directly toward the top of your mat, as long as that's comfortable, or maybe it turns out to the side just a little bit, and we keep that little bend into the elbows. And then we find a long neutral spine. So we try to maintain those natural curves, crown of the head, reaching away from the tailbone, and just pause for a breath in your table. And then slide or step your hands out a few inches forward of your shoulder, beginning to bring the hips forward and down for half plank. So the shoulders now come forward over the wrists and the hips lower down, so they're between our shoulders and our knees. We still have that little bend into the elbow with the eye of the elbow pointing directly forward, and we're still keeping the neck in line with the rest of the spine. And we'll pause here in half plank for a breath. And then waiting for your next inhale, start to lift yourself back up through that tabletop pose, and then with your exhale, slide back into child's pose. With your next inhale, lifting your way up, tabletop. Slide your hands out, tuck the toes, float the hips, plank pose. Again, we try to lower those hips so they're right between our shoulders and our heels now. We've got that little baby bend in the elbow, eye of the elbow pointing forward, so elbows pointing directly behind us, neck in line with the rest of the spine, slowing and softening into the breath. Lowering the knees, untucking the toes, drawing yourself back through tabletop, child's pose. Inhaling, lifting back, table. Slide the hands out, tuck the toes, lift the knees, plank pose. Check in with your alignment, with how you're feeling here. Find a nice sturdy foundation, and then bringing all your weight over to your left leg. Float your right leg, keeping the knee mostly straight. Find 2 full inhales, exhales in a 3-leg plank. Lowering that foot back down to the mat. Bring all your weight into those right toes. Float your left leg, keeping the knee mostly straight. 2 full breath cycles. Lowering that foot back down to the mat. Lower the knees, untuck the toes. Lift yourself through tabletop, back to child's pose. Lifting back up toward tabletop, this time pausing in tabletop, and we'll move toward a supported side plank and add a little movement and then a stretch. So I'm keeping my right knee on my mat. I'm sliding my right foot just off the right side of my mat. I'm going to bring my left leg back behind me, lifting the knee, and then I'm going to roll over onto the inner edge of that left foot, opening my hips up to the left and bringing my left hand overhead. First, I've got that left foot resting and my left fingertips are just reaching for the ceiling. I'm just going to check in here. And then I'm going to try to float this left leg parallel to the floor. Heel away, I'm drawing my toes in, trying to have this leg and torso as close to parallel to the floor as I can get them. And then I'm going to take this arm and I'm going to bring it up overhead. I'm going to find a little bit of a back bend, bringing that hand and foot slightly behind me. And then I'm going to draw everything in towards center, drawing navel to spine, bending the elbow, knee, and letting them meet in front of the torso. Inhaling into that length, find a little back bend. Exhaling, drawing forward, rounding. One more time, inhaling, lengthen, opening. Drawing in and down. This time we're going to lengthen and pause. And then we're going to let that left foot float back to the floor. We're going to let our left arm reach overhead. We're going to find a big side stretch. And then we're going to bring that left hand back up. We're going to rotate it down toward the floor as we come back onto the ball of the left foot. We're going to slide that knee down. Bring your right foot in. Big inhale in your neutral spine in tabletop. Exhale, round your spine. Press into the hands, tuck the toes, press into the toes. Cat stretch. Inhale, tops of the feet, find the mat. Lower the belly, open the heart. Spinal extension. Meeting back in a nice neutral table, finding your foundation. Left knee stays connected, left foot slides out. Right knee lifts as we slide the foot back behind. We roll over onto the inner edge of that right foot, open the hips to the side, send those fingertips overhead. Notice any differences side to side. As you're ready, right leg floats, toes draw in, heel reaches away, imagining length, length, length. And then we bring that right hand overhead, find a little bit of a back bend, arm and leg draw behind, navel to spine, bringing everything in. Inhaling, lengthen, little opening. Exhale, round. One last inhale, lengthen. Coming in, next time we lengthen, we'll pause. Float those right toes down to your mat. Up, top arm reaches overhead. Find that big side stretch. Lifting right fingertips, flowing that arm back down to your mat. Rotate back onto the toes on the right. Bring that knee down. Left foot comes in. Big inhale, exhale, cat stretch. Inhale, lower the belly, open the heart. Back to tabletop, stepping the hands out a little forward of the shoulder. Bring the hips forward and down, half plank. 4 breaths here, or tuck the toes, lift the knees, plank pose, 4 breaths here, or 2 breaths, 3-leg plank one side, 2 breaths second side, eventually finding your way to child's pose. Lifting your way back up, tabletop, sliding the hands out a little forward of the shoulder. Tuck the toes, this time keep the knees down, so we're all going to be in our half plank. And getting ready to lower knees, chest, chin to find Cobra. So we keep the belly engaged. We're drawing that navel in toward the spine. We're going to keep it lifted as we start to lower the heart down toward the hands. And then as we approach the floor, we're going to slide the heart forward between the shoulders. Belly slides to the floor, and then using the low back, lift the heart. The elbows are drawing toward the back of the mat. Heart gaze, lift. Fingers could float if you tried. Cobra pose, Bhujangasana. Lowering back down toward the mat, keeping those knees down, press hands under shoulders, lift up toward a half plank through tabletop, child's pose. Finding that flow again, lifting tabletop, sliding the hands out, hips forward and down, half plank, lowering chest, chin, sliding forward, inhale to lift, Cobra, lowering, pressing up toward half plank, table, child's pose. One more time that way, through your tabletop, making your way forward, half plank, lowering chest, lowering chin, drawing the heart forward as you relax the belly, elbows pull toward the back of the room, using the low back, Cobra pose. Drawing your way back down, beginning your lift through half plank, tabletop, child's pose. Lifting your way back up, sliding the hands out, finding your half plank option, same flow if you would like, or Tuck the toes, lift the knees. Find that solid plank pose. Still keeping that navel gently drawing in toward the spine, elbows drawing in toward the center of the mat. We're going to lower heart toward hands, letting shoulders come no lower than elbows, and we'll pause in low plank, Chaturanga Dandasana, and then we'll press into the hands, open the heart. The thighs stay floated as we roll over to the tops of the feet. Open the heart. Find your upward facing dog. If you're in up dog, rolling back over the toes, plank, lowering the knees, lifting back through your tabletop, all meeting child's pose. Lifting back up, sliding the hands forward, half plank, flowing chest to chin, cobra, or tucking the toes, lifting the knees, finding your plank, low plank, upward facing dog, meeting in child's pose. Lifting back up. Once more, either flow, your choice. When you're finished, child's pose. Gently walking both hands over toward the left side of your mat. Pick up your right hand, cross it across the left wrist. Find a breath melting down toward that left thigh. Walking those hands back through center. Over to your second side, crossing the wrist, finding a breath melting down toward right thigh. Walking hands back through center, activating the palms, pressing your way back up, tabletop. Step the hands out a little forward of the shoulder, bring your hips forward and down. Find your half plank, tuck your toes, float your knees, find your plank. Either pause here or step down onto your forearms, elbows connect under the shoulders, palms rest together or fingers interlace. Find your dolphin plank, and we'll be here for a moment. So just notice what you're feeling in your body right now, or maybe notice what's happening with your breath. And then if we're down in dolphin plank, we'll step back up onto the hands. We'll all lower the knees, untuck the toes, float the hips to the heels, child's pose. Lifting your way back up, sliding the hands out, tuck the toes, lift the hips, this time all coming into dolphin plank. Lowering down onto forearms. Palms are going to rest together. And then just imagine you're going to gently rotate your hips to the right. Your left hip is going to dip a little lower, like you're going to try to touch your mat. And then you're going to sweep that left hip high, drop your right hip down. So it's almost like a little figure 8 movement with your hips. So you lower one side and then the other. And then find stillness in your dolphin plank. And then from here, keeping your forearms down, lower your knees, untuck your toes, press your way back towards child's pose, release those hands, let them slide along with you. Roll your way all the way up to kneeling hero pose. You can come into a high kneel here if that's easier on the knees. Just slide your hands all the way around to your low back. Press into your low back, open through the heart, elbows, shoulders drop back, gaze comes high. Sliding the hands all the way back around to the thighs. Sliding the hands over, coming back to tabletop. And then from here, coming all the way into a side plank. So we'll bring those hands out in front of us, rock the hips forward and down, tuck the toes, lift the knees. Step your legs a little closer together so your feet are almost touching. Step your right hand in a little closer so that palm is right under your gaze. Roll over onto the outer edge of your right foot. Float your left hand overhead. You can bring your gaze directly in front of you or bring your gaze up toward your top hand. Big inhale in your side plank. Exhale, floating that hand back down toward your mat. Come back over into your plank pose. Lower the knees, untuck the toes, lift the hips just a little to find tabletop. Big inhale in your neutral spine. Exhale to round up into cat stretch. Inhale to lower the belly, open the heart. Finding your way back to tabletop. Sliding the hands out, tucking the toes, lifting the knees, finding your plank. Stepping the feet in, they're very close together. Left hand comes in under the gaze. We roll over onto the outer edge of the left foot and we send that right arm overhead, gazing forward or past the fingers. One more big inhale as we exhale, sweeping that hand down. Plank pose. Lowering the knees, lifting the hips a little, sliding the hands back to find your tabletop. Big inhale, big exhale to arch the back, stretch. Big inhale to lower the belly, open the heart. And finding your way back into your tabletop. Bringing the knees wide on your mat, letting your toes point toward one another. Sending your hips back to your heels, finding a wide knee child's pose. Pause. Lifting your way back up toward tabletop. Bringing the knees back in line with the hips. Sliding the hands out a little forward of the shoulder, we'll come down onto our bellies. So again, we lower the chest and the chin like we're coming toward that Cobra pose, but we're just gonna relax our way all the way down onto our belly. And then we'll bring our right arm toward the top of our mat, so our forearms parallel to the short edge. And then we'll roll over onto our right hip, stack our left leg over our right, and we're gonna check in that elbow landed right under our shoulder with our fingertips pointing directly forward. These fingertips can be here to just support me for a moment if that feels good, or you can go ahead and lift that hand up toward the ceiling, fingertips pointing high. We're gonna find a big inhale. As you exhale, see if you can float the hips for a side dolphin plank. Lowering hips back down onto the mat. Bring that left hand all the way down. Roll yourself over onto your belly. Bring your hands back under your shoulders and then slide your hands forward. Elbows are right under shoulders. Press down into both palms. Imagine you're pulling those hands back toward your body. Find length in the spine, length in the front body, lifting the crown of the head, lifting the gaze. And relaxing that Sphinx pose so you can roll over to the opposite side, letting that left arm come parallel to the top of the mat. I'm going to stack my right leg on my left, and I'm going to go ahead and float my right arm, or I'm going to use those fingertips for a little help to balance. As I press into the outer edge of the left foot, float the hips, find my side dolphin plank. Lowering the hips back down. Bringing that right arm all the way around. And again, front of the pelvis comes back down. We're going to bring those elbows right under the shoulders. We're going to press those forearms down. Imagine drawing them in. Find that length in your Sphinx pose. If this is already a good opening or a lot for the low back, stay here, find another breath. Or step your hands out toward the corners of your mat as you lift your elbows. Press down into the floor. Draw the hands back toward you. Find what we would call in yin yoga seal pose. And then just float yourself all the way down into crocodile. So we start to relax those arms, relax the spine. We draw those forearms across the top of the mat again. One forearm rests across the other, and we rest our forehead on our forearms. Lifting the head so you can release the arms, draw the hands back under the shoulders, press yourself up toward that half plank shape, lifting the hips a little more, drawing yourself back through tabletop, sending the hips all the way to the heels, finding a child's pose, or could be a wide knee child's pose, or you could keep the hips a little higher, walk your arms forward, find a puppy pose or melting heart. From here, getting ready to move right into another part of your practice or right into your wind down, cool down, and stretch. Thank you.